it's been created so that you know it's been created to take the shape of literature, so to say. It started as a series of talks, and it's now taken the shape of a literature festival, which is the Orange City Literature Festival since December 2019. And this session of the knowledge series is organized every month, such sessions. And since the pandemic and lockdown, the sessions have been taking place online since April 2020. So, I would really like to thank the organizers, for having me and Sujata here. And, without further ado, a little bit of introduction about Sujata herself. She's an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, New Delhi. She has worked as a journalist with Indian Express and as a regular columnist for Midday in Pune. She's the principal writer for a web series that is currently being produced by MX Player. She's also a co-organizer of the Pune chapter of Kalam, a national organization that promotes literature. Blood on the Sands is her fourth title, so to say, that's been published by Amaryllis last year, November. So definitely, this is what we're going to be talking about today, guys. So Blood on the Sands, keep that in your mind. Her previous books include Silent Whispers, A Twist in Destiny, and Songs of Stone. And if you want to go check it out on Amazon, if you want to ask us names of the books again, do ask us, and we'd love to. And I'm sure Sujata would also love to, interact with you maybe after the session too. So yeah, uh, as we all know, today's session has been titled very dramatically, but also very emphatically, and also very conclusively, tradition as the silent killer. And what and to kind of slowly and ease into this topic for the uninitiated. I'll probably Sujata give a small introduction, basically the blurb of Blood on the Sands. So we build a little bit of a premise, as to what the book is about, and then probably build into a conversation. So this is Blood on the Sands, a little bit of a premise, a little bit of a context setting. Quiet and beautiful Mankor stays in Quran, the last Indian village on the Indo-Pak border, with her two children, Samar and Ranu. Her husband Virender is a tracker at the BSF headquarters in Rapar. Virender returns home during Navratri, triumphant after nabbing Shaukat, a member of a dangerous cross-border gang involved in a terror plot against India. But there are some terrible things awaiting Virender in Quran. Are there murky secrets that threaten to destroy his family? And what are those haunting voices that whisper about a horrifying kill? When a brutal murder takes place under mysterious circumstances, Virendra's boss, Commandant Ranbir, connects it to the minute-by-minute unraveling terror plot. But was he overlooking something? Soon after, little Ranu goes missing. And as a result, Ranbir finds himself chasing red herrings in a race against time to find her and foil a terror plot. As chilling secrets tumble out, the end is more sinister than you can ever imagine. This is something that I just probably just read out as a blurb, but to further slowly and build into the characters, build into the story itself, to understand the inspiration behind, to understand the story itself, and to understand the message that the story, not message is a very two-dimensional word, to understand what all of this signifies in the larger context of what we see in reality. We have here Sujata today. So Sujata, thank you so much and for withstanding my very verbose introduction.
Namaste, and hello to everyone who are listening in. Thanks a lot for to give me this opportunity to talk about my book. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. So without probably further ado, I'll probably jump into the first question. That's probably coming up, and there's this one article that I recently read, and it is a very interesting online magazine called Feminism in India. And they said that every 50 seconds a girl child is killed in India, and this is a report from 2018. I'm guessing 2020 doesn't mean that there's been too much of a difference in this particular statistic. So probably did such shocking statistics, or might I say the shocking reality of it all, inspire you to write this book, or inspire you to think of writing something like this?
Not directly. I I do read a lot of stuff, like a lot of about this. I read a lot about such social issues, and they are there in the mind. But sometimes it takes one particular moment to bring out that inspiration. In this case, that inspiration was provided by my daughter, Sia. Like I was upset about something, and my daughter, she comes up to me and she asks me, "Do you want a massage? Do you want a cup of tea? Can I do something for you?" And then she goes away. Now she knows that I'm upset, so she does all this caring things and she goes away. And that, it is such a small moment of care, right? But it starts a whole chain of thoughts in my mind, and suddenly out of those thoughts emerge this such a strong concept or a plot which I get about this novel. I just sit up. I just sit up and uh, I know that this is a very something. I got something very strong in my mind now in this plot. So that is the inspiration. It was actually my daughter who inspired me to write this novel.
I mean, if I probably stay here for a second more, you know, this might have been where the inspiration initially came from, but how did it eventually metamorphose, or like, you know, the point of starting of the inspiration, which is, your daughter, how did that eventually transform into a thought in your mind where you said, like, okay, I'm going to talk about gender disparity, or like, infanticide, or
See, that is what I can't tell you because that chain of thoughts itself is a part of the suspense of my novel. That chain of thoughts itself is the whole crucial thing which led me just three thoughts. And that's it, one, two, three. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? What is this idea that I have got? And I can't tell you, unfortunately. I'm so sorry about that because that would, reveal my suspense completely. So you will have to read that book, and I hope you already have. You have to read the book to find out what this chain of thoughts must have been.
frankly speaking, I must confess, I'm actually 60% through the book already. I've been reading it very slightly after hours, and I go to sleep at 4 a.m. So
Okay.
that is my time to really catch up on that reading. But yes, frankly speaking, one thing that's always been intriguing me, why a thriller as a genre? It could have been a piece of non-fiction, it could have been an essay, it could have been a commentary, it could have been even another kind of a fictional take on it. Why a thriller particularly? Why this genre?
Very interesting question, Samantha. See, I'll tell you what. There is about this issue about which this novel writes about a particular issue, a social issue. Again, as I said, I can't talk about the issue blatantly because that's a part of the suspense of the novel. The thing is, there are there is a lot of stuff out there about this issue. Uh, you must have read it. Most people do, but what happens is sometimes if something is too tragic, there is a block about it. About sometimes your mind can't absorb that much of a something so tragic. So also what happens is that this whole uh, this whole issue comes across as in a very abstract basis. Any kind of a social evil is mostly presented in terms of numbers, and numbers dehumanize. They take away the horror of it.
Interesting.
My idea was to make it into two things. First of all, into a thriller format because it's easy to read. Most people, it's a very fast-paced novel anyway, and it would be easy to read because it's a thriller. And there is a whole lot of people who will not read a serious novel or an article or even some kind of a book or something like that about it, but they will read a fast-paced thriller murder mystery novel. I want this story to reach as many people as possible. That is the whole
Very.
idea of just grabbing more eyes on this story.
So I can see the journalist in you coming out here, essentially. Like, how do you best craft that message that the supply meets demand and it
Yes.
reaches maximum visibility. It's like, I mean, without of course stripping away the book that you've created. This is a very interesting take, and it's something that's very interesting because what I see here is that you've essentially kind of reconciled with. I mean, you realize. I mean, of course, there are different viewpoints here, different people, different viewpoints, but one is, yes, let's jump into the topic and deal with it very emphatically, very scholarly, very, very, very granular, in a very granular manner, etc., etc. And let's leave the rest to the world, right? What I see that you've done here is kind of it's like an end-to-end piece, right? I mean, if I have to sound a little corporatish, right? I mean, here's a concept. We realize it's not talked about often. We realize it's something that needs to be talked about often. And rather than saying, okay, let's just write a book and let the publishing world do its own job, or like let the network spread and let the book just move on, everywhere it can. What you've done is, okay, you've chosen the thriller as a genre as because from the degree of digestibility, right? I mean, as opposed to a tome of 800 books
Very good
with
phrase.
100 pages.
Yeah.
Very and one other point before I go to the next question is like I like the point that you mentioned where you talked about it's just a statistic, which is why we don't really internalize it. There is a writer that I was uh, reading recently, Daisy Hildyard is her name. She references another author, and it's a brilliant phrase. It's called the derangement of scale. As in, once you're on,
What did you say? It is the
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
no,
Otherwise,
that phrase. I need to just hear that phrase again.
yeah. The derangement, DERANGEMENT,
Okay.
the derangement of scale. So essentially, what the writer says is that when you're on the ground, you identify every individual as is. Like, this is a woman who is tall, that's a man who is grumpy, yada yada. There's a dog which is furry and white and brown or whatever. So at the time, you individualize everything. But as you imagine going up, and into the clouds, everybody, as the scale increases,
Yes.
everything gets deranged. Identity gets deranged. There is no identity anymore. There are basically 50 people on the street, but there's no individual identity. And it's a
Samantha, Samantha, that is the whole idea. Actually, you got it spot on. That is the whole idea behind this novel. Again, as I said, abstract and numbers they dehumanize. Okay, and I don't want to allow numbers the luxury of hiding the horror of this story. Which is why I took the statistic and made it into a story because I don't want you to think about it. I want you to also to feel about it. I want it to hit you where it hurts. Okay, so what I did was I
absolutely.
kind of a squeezed or kind of squeeze this whole abstract world of this social issue I'm talking about into a small world of Manpur, Virender, and their children Samar and Ranu, so that you you go through what they are going through, you identify with that pain or whatever circumstances they're going through, and then when you discover the whole issue, if it doesn't hit you hard, then I have failed as an author. I promise you that. So you have read 60% of my novel. Once you read 100%, and if you tell me that it hasn't hit you, I'll consider myself, okay, I haven't, this novel has not worked with one person, one reader. But I'm telling you, that is the whole idea. It should hit you hard.
Very interesting. I like how strong that that point is. I mean, it just hitting is not good enough. We are way beyond that point, even in reality. Just knowing a fact is not good enough. The whole thing kind of corresponds.
Only when it hits you hard, that is when your awareness increases, because attitude is the
Absolutely.
only way you can change any social issue. You cannot do it just with legislation.
I love that. I remember that question, and like yes. I mean, in fact, quickly, if I move into the book itself, why the run of Kutch? It could have been set anywhere in India. Why the run of Kutch?
it's a very sad thing actually that I could have set it anywhere in India. Okay, I could have put it in Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, South India. I chose this because I found the methodology, if possible, even how they do the social issue, the methodology of that. I found that, if possible, even more horrible and heinous than uh, anywhere else. So I chose Run of Kutch for that. Um, the interesting part over here is that once I chose Run of Kutch, then I got in touch with a social organization, and and I told them, "Okay, these are the parameters I need to so suggest me a village where I can go." And they are the ones who suggested, "Why don't you go to Kuran, the last village on Indo-Pak border?" Now that intrigued me. I went there, and that is when I realized कि मुझे तो gift मिल गई है. I have got a gift from God. Like
Wow.
that's how I seriously think about it, because Samantha, that whole Quran thing, and along with it, that Indo-Pak border, the terrorism, the smuggling, my main character Virender's profession, he's a puggy, a tracker, all that, it's added so much to my novel. It's added so many layers and color to my novel that I truly believe the suggestion of Quran was an inspired choice. And of course, Run of Kutch is amazing in its own way. It is so interesting. I can't tell you. Like I hope everyone goes to Run of Kutch at one point, because it is an amazing topography.
Yeah, very interesting when you say that, because you talked about like the cheer battis, right? I mean, it's essentially the aurora borealis plus extremely spooky plus extremely mysterious. That's how I'd probably describe it. We know the scientific facts behind the borealis, but the cheer battis have always remained a kind of a space of enigma. So I mean, I'd love to know how we were able to intertwine all these elements, how all of these elements came together in your mind, in the larger context of the plot line.
See, when I went to Quran, I stayed there for 3 weeks to do research. I didn't stay in Quran, I stayed nearby in Khavda, but I went continuously to Quran and did research. So then people were telling me, I was talking to people telling me, they talked about cheer battis. And as you said, it's not exactly aurora, it's something even more. These are colored lights which move around 10 feet. They're supposed to be moving around 10 feet above the ground, and they change colors. And if you if you chase them, they say they make you may go astray,
Wow.
because they are supposed to be the spirits of the people who died in Run of Kutch.
Oh wow, my God. Okay,
Yes.
interesting. But why
So
astray, if I might say, if I might kind of get into this, why astray?
I, the,
Why the negative connotation?
people believe that because they also died over there, they want, like, just to lead other travelers astray too. That is the local belief. I didn't see. I even camped for 2 days in Run of Kutch to catch out your cheer batti if possible, but I wasn't able to do that. But people say even now they're seen. They're very much seen.
Wow. I mean, I mean, uh, from that perspective, did the Chiripatis have become a metaphor for your story, essentially?
Not really. I mean, like I wish I could have, but it did. I couldn't
Hello.
exactly. The reference is there of cheer battis in my novel, but like it is not really an integral part of the story. It's a color which I have. It's a part of the color,
Hello.
not of the story.
Shit. Shit. Can you not do that? I can't connect. The session has gone off. Internet. Sorry for that. I don't know. I mean, this. I don't know.
I can see you.
Hello.
Hi, I can see you. Okay, since Samantak, there seems to be some technical problem with Samantak. So maybe I can read an extract of my novel till then for you. So this is the novel. This is the novel, and
Hi, I'm sorry. I think there was some issue with the with. I'm so sorry. No, so essentially the question I was asking really is, why did you? If I have to really come to the main point of the conversation, which is tradition, you know, and how did the run of Kutch, how did the Chirbattis, all of these, how did this become like, let's say, you know, uh, hi, can you hear me?
I can. There's a bit of an echo though.
Um, Hi, can the others go on mute, please? I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think,
Yes. So now continue.
yes.
I was about to read the extract, but
Yes.
my
So,
colleagues
so,
were gone.
so I just wanted to quickly set a context for this, right? The Cheer Battis, a run of Kutch, how did they become essentially metaphors? How did you kind of transform them into metaphors for this larger context around gender disparity?
I didn't. I didn't. Okay, Cheer Battis, as I said, it's not a part of my story. It's a part of the color of Run of Kutch. But tradition, if you're talking about tradition as a silent killer,
Yeah, so even if they were not part of the stories, I'm just trying to understand how Run of Kutch, like essentially became a sort of a metaphor, as like it became a living, breathing character in the story,
oh,
essentially.
absolutely, absolutely. Run of Kutch, Samantha, it's a metaphor for society, because whatever the social evil is, it's the real. I wouldn't want to call it a villain, but that is a real cause of this social evil. The tradition of centuries, the ideas of centuries which are there, they are the ones which have led to this kind of a situation, or this kind of a thinking that some things are okay just because society uh, wants it to happen that way. That some things like honor are too important, that even a human life is of no importance in front of that honor, because that is at the basis of this social evil, honor. And I've seen it happening. I've seen these ideas of uh, family honor uh, destroying lives. But
So do you,
there,
this honor you speak of, therefore, if I have to slightly and like enter into the main topic, tradition, right?
yes,
How bad is this problem of tradition? How bad is this problem of honor as far, as gender disparity is concerned? If, we have to call a spade a spade.
tradition and it's been there for now centuries. Okay. Do you know in 1800, in 1900s, there was a village in near in Gujarat, in Kutch, where for 100 years there had been no girl child, no girl
Wow.
child.
Wow. Interesting.
So think about how tradition shapes this kind of a situation, because they brainwash the mind of the women themselves, that this thing is okay, this is acceptable, this is fine. Think to what extent a, a woman's mind and her whole self identity is completely brainwashed and taken away by this thought that honor is more important than a human life.
Wow. My God.
And this is, and I'll tell you, and there are other things behind why this tradition happens, and biggest of them is caste. Unfortunately, like in Run of Kutch, also the biggest one of the biggest reason is that the upper caste, there is a idea they adhere to, that upper caste girls cannot be given to lower caste families. So they have to find upper caste boys, and if they don't, then that girl will stay unmarried. I've seen girls like that. I've seen girls like that who have,
Wow.
around 40, 45. They're unmarried, and they have, because I think probably because of the social pressures, they have gone slightly. They're not normal, which is so sad. I found it so sad. But that's what tradition does. Too much adherence to tradition, mind you. I'm all for some part of tradition, okay? But too much adherence to tradition, or to or this social pressure, this is what happens. This kind of extreme social evil happens because of that.
Wow. I mean, I mean, tradition is such a. You had mentioned legislation, right? Tradition is such a touchy subject.
Very.
Do you think the fact that tradition is a touchy subject is also hampering much needed legislation, in that particular space? Do you think, that is only, like tradition being touchy ends up being like a blockade to any kind of legislation if it ever happens?
Legislation can do only so much. It can't do more than that. So that, which is why for everything, it is the attitudes which need to change. And I'll tell you, it is so frustrating, to see whatever you are doing, is it having any real effect? But that's all you can do ultimately. Ultimately, you can have some, just be optimistic and hope that at some point the attitudes are going to change. But unless attitudes change, legislation cannot do everything. There are other ways. This is India. There are loopholes to get through just about anything and everything, any legislation.
I mean, with that point, it would be lovely if you can read a small excerpt, any of the excerpts, and then maybe I can, I'd love to probably take a small leaf out of that and ask a few more questions. That'll potentially come to my mind.
I was about to read the extract when you had left us for a moment, so I'll do that.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be amazing. Looking forward.
Okay. Um, so this is the book, and listen to the whispers of the sandy wind telling you stories. Sometimes these stories will touch your heart. Sometimes they will tear you apart. And then you will understand. Cruel as the run of Kutch is, it cannot be as cruel as the human heart. Today, the wind is whispering the story of a kill. It's a story that can sear your mind and destroy your peace. For killing a human is a complicated thing. There is so much to kill. The primordial gut-wrenching instinct for survival has to be stamped out. The voice silenced, the live wire energy doused, the desperation for the next breath strangled. And then, once the deed is done, one has to remove all traces of existence of that human being. The bones, the blood, the fragments of skin, the intensity of the eyes, the still heart, the clenched gut, the small bits and pieces that wrap up what is at the core, the soul, the spirit. But therein lies the problem. The soul is not that easy to kill. The spirit has its own ways of escaping the ravaged and destroyed house. Maybe it merges into the atmosphere. Maybe it hides in the shrubs, behind the mountains, in the clouds, within the sun rays, in the atoms. Then it hangs heavy in the air, a scrap of energy fleetingly felt, its anger pervading oh so subtly. And just as silently, it demands justice. It demands retribution of the life taken away before its time.
Wow. I mean, I've been enthralled about that little passage around, killing, the primordial gut wrenching.
Yeah,
There is so much to kill. If I have to really like um, put that into context, like there is so much to kill. Immediately gives me a kind of a visual of a mass grave, you know, and this kind of a mass grave is worse than any other mass grave because the other mass graves in history have at least got some kind of recognition, have at least got people to, take up arms, people to want justice. And like you mentioned here, everybody knows about these graves, everybody knows so much is being killed, and there is so much more to be killed, but there is no justice,
There
you
is
know.
no justice.
This is how does one reconcile with this in one's mind as a reader? How do you? I mean, don't you as a reader? I mean, if I have to flip your role from a writer to a reader, right? How do you reconcile with this feeling of helplessness?
How do you reconcile with the
With
what?
this feeling of helplessness?
Feeling of helpless. Okay. um, as a reader or as a writer, you feel very helpless in this issue. Uh, but as I said, there is all you can do is spread the word. All you can do is try to change minds. There is nothing much that can be done. Like how this is a ये तो घर घर की बात है हो सकती है ना. So how much legislation can you do? How much of a watch you can keep? So minds have to change, and which is why more than anything else, I'm interested in knowing how people will react to this story. Do they feel it? Do they feel it here? How they want? How I want them to feel?
In fact, I mean, just another silly question, rather. The whole angle of bringing the BSF in. What
Okay.
the whole BSF, the whole army element. You know,
Okay.
So I'd love to know why that. Was it like something that just naturally came into the plot line and it just made sense, or was there some kind of a? Is there some message you're trying to send to the reader through adding in characters who belong to the army, who belong, you know?
Um, uh, okay. BSF, the whole angle of BSF was, as I said, straight gift from God to enhance the story. Absolutely, to add layers to it. And I so enjoyed writing about the whole terror angle and the whole BSF angle and everything. It was, and also I loved the job of my main character. See, when I'd gone to Quran, I didn't even know what kind of a job or what profession my main character will be in, Virendra will be in. I didn't know that. There, someone told me, "Ki, why don't you think about Pagi?" बग्गी भी आई वाज आस्किंग दैट कि गांव में कैसे कैसे जॉब्स होते हैं, क्या क्या लोग करती हो आप. समझ सकते यहाँ पे पगी भी होते हैं. वैसे पगी वो क्या होता है? उसे वो मतलब ट्रैकर, बीएसएफ का ट्रैकर. एंड दैट इज हाउ बीएसएफ केम इनटू प्ले.
Wow.
The moment I heard tracker, I said, oh wow, this is something amazing. And then I really went into it. I did some research about it, and this guy told me, the one who suggested कि tracker एक अच्छा job है. So he suggested कि do you know कि कैसे ये tracker लोग क्या क्या करते हैं, क्या क्या करते हैं पगी वाले लोग. So he gave an example कि how these people, they can even differentiate between the camels of Pakistan and camels of India just by looking at
Wow.
the footprints.
Footprints. Can you just maybe, give us the answer to this, if there is any? I mean, are the footprints different or like just something, I don't know. What is it like?
From the footprints they can find out कहाँ से पाकिस्तान का camel है कि इंडिया का camel है. So
Very interesting.
it is such a fascinating this thing also, job profession also of a tracker, and it fitted so beautifully with my story. So beautiful.
I mean, very interesting. I mean, like, we say we humans know ourselves a little better than we know animals. I mean, of course, science is growing, but I mean, like, we know this distinctive difference in every human's footprints, right? But to know that there is a distinction
अच्छा,
in
I'll tell you how also. Okay, they find out ना कि वो जो पाकिस्तान साइड का it's more sandy, the whole this thing over there. It's that whole it's more sandy, so the feet of the camel are rougher, whereas the land over here, the ground over here is more stony on the Indian side. So घिस के वो जो camels के feet हैं, they are smoother, and that is one way of discovering which is from Pakistan or from India.
Oh my God, this is a wonderful nugget of information. It's like a trivia from a quiz. You know, wonderful. I was not expecting this. This is actually such a nice surprise. You know, but to quickly kind of go back on track. I also discovered a very interesting fact by the Wire, no less, where basically in a 2017 report, they talked about sex ratios in urban cities
Yeah.
being worse than in rural areas. It
Yes.
was astonishing. It's an astonishing point of view, empirically arrived at point of view. For example, Mumbai, Delhi, and Hyderabad have sex ratios that are worse than most other parts of the country. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. It's a very interesting point that probably isn't something that people would not assume.
Yes, but I don't know whether this is truly like that, or is it just because if one stays in a city, it's more difficult to hide information or hide these kind of numbers. Uh, Whether it's because I don't see, like, the way I have done my research and all that. I think it's this kind of a thinking is just about anywhere. Different methodologies are used in village and different in city maybe. But honestly, I don't know these. If you've read this article, it must be right. But I really don't know. I cannot uh, make you. I cannot understand myself how this can be a distinction, because village also has such kattar tradition kind of a thinking, which hopefully should change, right, when it comes to cities.
Absolutely. That's
Right?
that's the that's the logic. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's the logic. So, as I said, maybe the numbers cannot be hidden in the city the way they can in the village.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, I mean, yeah, in fact, um, yeah, there was another very interesting viewpoint that I heard recently, where they said, like this is essentially a cyclical effect. Like, if you're killing more girl children over time, if you're killing more girl children over time,
If you're what?
if you're killing,
Oh, okay.
more girl children over time, over the years, there are definitely more boys than there are girls, and that in turn creates more oppressive structures for these women who've now grown up because there are more men and lesser women, and
Yeah,
we know the narratives. We know the narratives,
yeah.
and then that builds on and on and on. So what we see is tradition is not like this straight plateau graph where it's bad. What we see is the same amount of killing, if I might use a very crass word like that, right? Same amount of killing has an exponential impact on the lives of women and girls.
Oh, absolutely. Apart from the life as such, just think what this kind of a thing does to their identity, self identity, or their self confidence, or their self image. Like, imagine just being a woman can lead to this kind of a evil. Just being a woman, it's okay to kill a girl child. Just think what that does to a woman. How second, how inferior it makes her feel. And think in all what that does to society. If the women of the society feel that they are inferior, what it would do to the whole balance of society. Because, like it or not, it's the women who hold it together, right?
True. Absolutely.
They add that amazing some amazing layer to society, of humanity, of sensitivity, of understanding, of emotions. So think,
Absolutely.
if a woman herself feels so much lesser, slowly it's chipped away, her ego, her her pride as a woman, her identity. what that does to society in the field.
In fact, would you say that that is also why, in many cases, women end up being enemies to women? Like, women end up perpetrating these traditions also. As a result of their own oppression, as a result of the oppressions they've gone through, like you mentioned a while back, they just grow up in that atmosphere without knowing any better, and they just become used to that normal. Uh,
So
you know,
this is the new normal. This is the new normal for them, which has been created by society. That they have to accept that they are inferior and it's okay to do this. And in many cases, they are the ones who are supposed to do it. You know that they are the ones who are supposed to do it. Society expects them to do it.
very interesting. Now that we talk of society, we're talking of women themselves. Who do you think, if I have to really say this out loud, who are the biggest enemies of the girl child? Of this. I mean, is it society at large, or is it your near and dear ones inside the house?
I would say society at large. It's society ultimately which shapes the attitudes of the people living at home. And it's a society which comes from centuries. It is not done instantly, obviously. From centuries, this idea has percolated, and there are historical reasons why these ideas have percolated, and uh, and that is what affects the people in the house. So, absolutely, society. It's the villain, social cause.
So again, like if I now have to strip away from society and say, in terms of gender, how much of a role have men played in perpetrating this, and what kind of a role do men play today? In today's context,
Um,
or can they play also?
Interesting question. Like obviously, men have a role to play. Like because probably when it started out, for them, it was just a matter of convenience to
Absolutely.
to name it as a honor, family honor, and so that it was easier for them. Uh, So, and later on, they just found it easier because if 50% of the population starts themselves thinking that they are less important than men, then obviously it becomes easier. No? There's a power which they get, and that does go to the head. So that is what they have. That's happened for so many centuries. Now things are changing. There is a definite change in thinking of men, of thinking of the society slowly. It's going to take time to percolate down, as any new idea does. But I'm hopeful slowly things will percolate down, things will change, and things
So
are
how?
changing slowly.
I mean, if I have to interject here, I mean, in reality, because you've also gone to, you've also gone, to the town of Kutch. You've actually been there for a while, and I'm sure, in the course of writing the book, in the course of now talking about the book, um, how do you think this whole scenario is evolving slash changing? You
Uh,
know, in the
I'm,
rural parts of the
I'm,
country.
I'm hoping it is changing for the better. I'm hoping that is the whole like I'm optimistic because I have to
So,
be.
based on your experiences in the town of Kutch, when you were researching, what were your thoughts then when you saw the reality around you? What did you feel? I mean, has it changed a little bit there yet,
Yes,
or
I have seen there is a change. There is higher education for girls now, better education for girls. Slowly, the ideas are changing, even in villages. As I said, it's a combination of both legislation and this thing. The legislation also has its effect. People are more scared of doing certain things now, but things have changed. But a lot more needs to be done. A lot more changes have to be made.
so? I mean, if I really have to then talk about solutions, I know we can't talk of a solution in a few minutes and in a session, and it sounds elitist even using the word solutions. Really, you know, it's a very ability word. It's a very responsible word, and I'm sure there's thousands of organizations and amazing individuals on the ground working towards this on a daily basis as we speak. But just for the benefit of our audiences here, how does one work towards a solution as an individual? Is awareness the only thing that we can do as an individual, or is there something more? Also, a two-part question essentially.
Awareness, awareness, awareness. Absolutely awareness. And change of attitudes due to that, because of that awareness. Make them understand what ultimately the harm it is doing the whole society, whole of society, not just a particular section. It's absolutely you, unless awareness grows, things will not change. So education, higher education, better job opportunities, jobs for women are doing a lot to uh, change the change women's destinies these days. So so that kind of a thing. That is economic empowerment of women. These are the only things which will ultimately lead to a major change in this kind of a situation. Really.
Very interesting you mentioned that as we come to the end of the conversation, you know, if I have to also kind of deep dive a little bit, when you see economic empowerment, like, that is tangible money, paisa, haath pe. We can see paisa, right? I mean, like for the family unit in a village setting, traditionally the man is always the one, if you have a male child, that's ROI, right? That's return on investment because the male child will grow up, help you with your farms. He's got the muscles, then he'll go on to earn money, blah, blah, blah. And that's also why economically the girl is not preferred. But now we're talking of economic empowerment of the woman also, of the female child, the possibility that the girl can be educated and the possibility that the girl can go on to earn as much or probably even more than the
Yes.
male child. Not probably, I'm sure more than the male child. I mean, do you think if just economic empowerment is that one thing, apart from the awareness creation, can economic empowerment by itself, like when the female child completes her degree and somehow gets a job or figures it out, do you think that plays a large role to oppose tradition as a thought process? Like economic empowerment against tradition, if I have to summarize this.
Economic empowerment can be the game changer if it is well done. It can be absolutely the game changer because, like it or not, after 5 years, 10 years of earning her own money, a woman is going to put her foot down at some point. At some point, she's going to say, to hell with the tradition, this is not right, and this is what I want. So I think economic empowerment is the way to go. Apart from and once she puts her foot down, attitudes will change around. Men will have to change their attitudes.
Very interesting. And like, just to basically end off, I'd love if there's one more excerpt that you can read for our audiences, you know,
Okay, okay,
that'll be quite lovely because we did talk about killing, we talked about justice and the injustice of not getting justice. We talked about tradition, solutions. We've hovered around this space. Would it be lovely if we can end up with another passage that is very, very dear to your heart and that you feel might, pull at the heartstrings of our readers here.
okay, all right, fine. So but that day something had come apart deep within. The hurting, maddening thought of her younger brother being able to read, to make sense of words and understand the story in a book had set it off. Maybe it was the sight of that crisp notebook, the new red pencil box, or the enchanting Manila scent of the eraser Baba had bought for him. I want to go to school. I want to read stories. I want to write my name, she had wailed, her voice rising when Mai had tried to soothe her. She had flailed her thin limbs and, in a fit of uncontrollable rage, thrown away her brother's books, one after another, each one hitting the mud wall with a thwack and falling on the floor. She had thrown the shiny pencils, the blue monkey shaped pencil sharpener, the transparent foot ruler, that scented eraser, the box itself. She was about to throw the khaki colored school bag when Mai had slapped her hard, snatched the bag out of her hands, and slapped her once more. On and on she had cried, not quiet tears, but angry howls. like an injured animal in the stony desert.
Wow. Thank you. And we talk about injured animal in a stony desert, and I'm going back to a conversation around camels. You know, but thank you so much, Sujata. Thank you so very much
My pleasure in time. And
for this wonderful
I'd
conversation.
like to thank SGR, and I'd like to thank you and everyone, all the organizers, for this lovely opportunity. And of course, thanks to everyone who has tuned in today to listen to my conversation. That's all.
Thank you, Sujata. I guess I speak on behalf of SGR when I say that we're very privileged and fortunate to have had this conversation with you, especially around the topic that needs to be talked about every second of a living, breathing
Absolutely,
movement.
absolutely.
Thank you so very much, everybody who's tuned in today. Do go check out the book. The book is called Blood on the Sands. It's been published by Amaryllis, and it's available on Amazon and on the publisher's website, manjulpublishinghouse.com. Yeah. Thank you so very much, Sujata. Thank you so very much, Manalini, and everybody else at SGR for hosting us and for being so gracious and kind. And to the audience for being so patient. Thank you so very much.
20 years of existence. 2 universities. 23 educational institutes. Offering 137
Okay,
courses.
great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Raisoni Group of Institutions. A vision
By the way,
beyond.
Amin, just one question. Hello. Could you hear my voice properly? Okay, but इसमें प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था मतलब सुने नहीं दे रहा था क्या नहीं नहीं बीच में the internet went off for 1 minute, you know. It like right now 2 minutes back again the same thing happened. I don't know why. I mean last time एक सेशन पे भी ऐसा सिचुएशन क्या sorry hello yes no so like I was